Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. So, today, of course, is the episode that was bound to happen at one point. The one where we had to cover the death of George H.W. Bush. To be a bit morbid for a second, I was 100% predicting that he was going to be the next president to go. I mean, pretty much everybody saw it from a mile away, except for a friend of mine who said that Bill Clinton was going to be the next to go. But I pointed out the obvious, his wife died, he was in a wheelchair, that stuff. But, that's just how it is. I mean, we all knew it was going to happen at one point. Though I will say, not to be a bit more morbid, probably the next order is going to be around, the next orders for presidential deaths will be like Carter, Clinton, maybe Trump next, then Bush Jr., and then Obama. But, providing something doesn't happen in between then to cause one of them to just go now. But, before we get into that, let's get right into the news. The biggest news involves the 2020 election. Two things. One, Washington Governor Jay Inslee announced that he was forming an exploratory committee alongside Marianne Williamson to run for the Democratic nomination. Both of them seem, Jay Inslee, his idea is to focus on climate change, but unless I get other issues, I don't know. Williamson, I think she was a Bernie supporter, so, yeah, she seems alright. She was endorsed by the likes of, I think Ro Khanna endorsed her, but I'm not sure. But the next thing involving the 2020 election, the one that I actually have an article for, it's an opinion article, but it's one that's big. Michael Avenatti officially announced that he is not running for president in 2020. I'm glad that we can finally just ignore Avenatti now. Now the media can't pretend to care about him anymore. Now his ego is finally done. Hooray! And according to the article, Avenatti did a big favor because really, nobody cares about Avenatti. I didn't care about him then, and I didn't care about him now. So now we finally have a chance to say goodbye to Avenatti forever. Hooray! But anyways, next story. Incoming House Committee Leader to call off witch hunt against environmental groups. The odds are good that environmental groups will stop receiving threatening letters from congressional leaders starting next month. Letters demanding information about their alleged ties to foreign governments when the Democrats take control of the House of Representatives. The Congressional Green Scare of 2018, led by U.S. House Natural Resource Committee Chairman Rob Bishop, sought to impede the work of environmental groups by accusing them of working on behalf of foreign governments agents against the interests of the United States and the military. Whether Bishop will hand off his harassment campaign against but what is certain is that the House Natural Resources Committee, with Representative Raul Grijalva in line to take over as chairman, will discontinue its power to wage a green scare against environmental groups. So yeah, Grijalva being Grijalva, is going to take a stand against, people fighting against progress. It's a shame that Grijalva couldn't take that, progress and fighting attitude and, do something like, maybe run for speaker or something. I'm still mad that no progressive challenged Pelosi. Not a one. Maybe, I guess technically their idea might have been like, oh, we only have like 200 and something votes. We can't have like all the progressives vote for Raul Grijalva, and then all the corporatists vote for Steny Hoyer, and then have Nancy Pelosi drop out and endorse Steny Hoyer, causing a lot of other people to be like, hey, let's vote for Steny Hoyer. So, I mean, I guess like that could be an idea that they had, but it's, well, a stupid idea. And I'm not on board with that. If I were in the House, I'd be running for Speaker every single time that I'm allowed to. Even if I don't get a single vote, I'll still run. And they might say, wait a second, wouldn't you vote for yourself? Well, not if I'm the only person voting for me. If I were in the House, I'd be like, okay, since no one else is gonna vote for me, I'm gonna cast my vote for Ro Khanna. But anyways, next story. James Alex Fields found guilty of killing Heather Heyer during violent Charlottesville white nationalist rally. Fields faces 20 years to life for the first-degree murder charge, which will be sentenced at a later date. James Alex Fields Jr. was found guilty on Friday of killing Heather Heyer when he plowed his car into a group of counter-protesters at last year's Unite the Right rally. So, yeah, the guy who drove his car into the fat lady, he drove his car into her, then he was like, they're like, oh, no, she died because she was fat. I mean, no. In fact, if a fat person was hit by a car, wouldn't it cushion your fall? I don't know. But that's just how it is. He finally got what he deserved. He ran his car into a woman. Of course he should go to jail. But people still say, like, no, social justice warriors are the bad ones. They're the bad ones. They're the ones who are going to ruin society. They're not the ones who are driving their cars into people. Yeah, I mean, social justice warriors, they're not the ones driving their cars into people. So, yeah. Next story. And this one is actually a relatively new story and kind of ties in to the subject of the video. Trump will nominate William Barr as Attorney General. President Trump on Friday said that he intends to nominate William P. Barr, who served as Attorney General during the first Bush administration from 1991 to 1993, to return the head of the Justice Department. He was my first choice since day one, Mr. Trump told reporters as he walked from the White House to a helicopter for a trip to Kansas City. He'll be nominated. Trump's focus on Mr. Barr, who supports a strong vision of executive powers, has emerged over the past week, following the ouster last month of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General and the turbulent reception that greeted his installation of Matthew G. Whitaker. So, I have a couple of things to say about this one. One is the whole William P. Barr. There's no way William P. Barr was Donald Trump's first choice. I mean, I didn't know who this man was until now. I'm pretty sure nobody else really knew either. My guess is that Donald Trump, in response to the whole George H.W. Bush death, after George H.W. Bush's death, he was pretty much like, hey, maybe I should give George H.W. Bush something. I mean, me and him kind of were like he was the boring old stupid Republican, and I'm the new guy. I'm the new kind of Republican. So maybe I should give him and his supporters something. But I'm not gonna give them a lot of things. I'm just gonna give them him getting another chance to be Attorney General. And by the way, William P. Barr gets to be Attorney General again. Oh boy. I mean, I don't really like it, the idea that you get to be the office that you were. Like, he wasn't even elected. Like, if they elected him again, that'd be one thing. But they didn't. You see, what actually happened is he was just chosen to be the nominee again. He was just chosen to be Attorney General again. And, well, that's not necessarily a good thing. I'll give John Keel, the guy who was the guy who was chosen to replace John McCain as the Arizona senator. He was like, he was chosen to take the place of McCain, and then at least gave me at least something to be like, hey, you know, I'm not gonna run again. I'm not gonna run for another seat because, you know, blah, blah, blah. Although another thing I have to say is about the Jeff Sessions portion of this. Jeff Sessions, he was a senator and then was taken out of his seat to be the Attorney General. Why did Trump do that? Like, he gave his seat up. He gave a really conservative seat up to be replaced by a moderate Democrat. I'm not saying moderate Democrats are good, but I'm just saying that, you know, that's a thing that he did. Why would he do it? Is Donald Trump's secret plan to appoint all these super conservative people to his cabinet, and then when he gets rid of them, have them be like, oh no, I guess the entirety of the Senate no longer has any Republicans? But like a lot of people that were in the Attorney General, like picking, you know, a lot of people were saying like Ted Cruz or something, and I'm like, I mean, maybe Ted Cruz could have been Attorney General if he lost to Beto O'Rourke, but, you know, I highly doubt that he was going to do that then. But anyways, now onto the political party of the day, the Raza Unida Party. It's a Chicano political party centered around Mexican-American nationalism. It was born in the early 1970s and became prominent through Texas and Southern California, you know, where Chicanos live. It was started to combat the growing inequality and dissatisfaction of the Democratic Party, which was supported by many Mexican-American voters. After its establishment in Texas, the party launched electoral campaigns in Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, and California, though it only secured official party status in Texas. It did poorly in the 1978 Texas elections, and pretty much after that they were all like, we're just gonna go. Like, it's funny, it says here, like, it was dissolved in 1978, but was officially dissolved in 2008. So, you know, it was around longer than, like, I like to imagine, like, the people who founded the party, they were like, hey, man, can I join a Raza Unido party? What are you talking about, man? We dissolved that in the 70s. No, it says here it's still around, man. Oh, no. Ay, Dios mío. We need to dissolve it now. It's been like 10 years or 70 years or whatever. Dave's not here, man. Okay, this is kind of cringy. I'm making a Dave's Not Here Cheech and Chong joke in a video at the memorial of George H. W. Bush. I think I did something like that in the John McCain video too. I made like a, I don't know what the joke was, to be quite honest, but I'm gonna listen back to it to find out what it is. But the party didn't really have much to do. The party didn't. It ran candidates in Texas, but it never really got more than third place, to be quite honest. And I don't even have time to look over all of them because they're all like pretty much nobodies. Like there wasn't a Eugene V. Debs or the Raza Unida party. I mean, I could have been that if they had more issues than just Chicano nationalism. Because I'm not a Chicano. I mean, I'm Mexican American, but I'm not a Chicano. I mean, maybe under a technicality. I don't really know what a Chicano means. I actually just looked this up. Yeah, I technically am Chicano. It's a Mexican American. It's pretty much a Mexican American. well, I mean, technically, if I don't define myself as a Chicano, I'm not a Chicano. So, yeah, I'm not a Chicano. It's like being a furry. If you identify as a furry, you're a furry. If you don't, you're just someone who likes anthropomorphic animals. Not saying that's your experience. But anyways, this one was supposed to talk about a dead guy, right? I'm supposed to talk about a dead guy in this video, right? Okay, so George H.W. Bush. One of the two George Bushes that was elected president. The one people remember less because he was in The Simpsons. That's one thing I gotta say about him. Like, I mean, to be quite honest about George H.W. Bush, there's not much I really I don't remember much about his presidency because of the fact that I wasn't alive at the time. But, like, just think about it. He is not to be mean, but he is the lesser of the George Bushes. Everybody remembers George W. Bush because, they had the whole Iraq War, and weapons of mass destructions and the Bushisms. But George H.W. Bush was like, if you took all the funny parts of George W. Bush, that's what George H.W. Bush is. Like, I mean, I remember, because in my ranking of U.S. presidents, I ranked George H.W. Bush as number 30. I mean, I did that because, he did some good things. Like, he did try to help with environmental protection a bit. But, otherwise, he did a lot of bad promises. We all know the infamous "read my lips, no new taxes." I'm not even against raising taxes. Because, taxes, believe it or not, they're not that high. Like, compared to other countries, yeah. They're not that high. But, he was, he was the one who was like, I'm the fiscal conservative. I'm not gonna raise taxes at all. But he's like, yeah, I'm gonna raise taxes, and that was Pat Buchanan's fodder. That was his cannon fodder. Like, literally, all he had to do was say was, I'm gonna raise taxes ever so slightly. I'm going to defeat you, George Bush. That's what Buchanan did. And then he ran for president in the Reform Party, and we don't know what happened there. But here are some, like I said, there's not much I remember explicitly about George H.W. Bush. There are some things that are... First, let's address the elephant in the room. How the heck did this guy get in here? Get out of here, you loser. Go, there's peanuts over there. So anyways, let's talk about the fact that George H.W. Bush potentially groped 9 women. Now, the story behind it is an actress and several other women came forward and said, like, hey, George W. Bush, he grabbed my ass and then told me a dirty joke. And I mean, I don't know if these stories are exactly true or not, but the fact that George H.W. Bush's person, like the spokesperson for them, had to come forward and say, like, yeah, sorry, it kind of makes me go, maybe that's not particularly good. They've also explained, like, it could be his Parkinson's, which, I mean, I don't know. I don't know much about the story. I'll chop it up as, I don't know much about the story, so I can't really say. With George H.W. Bush, I wouldn't say I expected it, but old senile person probably won't remember everything that's PC for everybody to like. Like, again, let me just preface it with this. I know pretty much zero about George H.W. Bush. Pretty much nothing. There's some things that are... I kind of know, but the like pretty, like I'm not in either of the big. There were two big crowds that emerged after George H.W. Bush's death. Crowd A is like, George H.W. Bush, we love you, sir. We love you. You're the greatest president ever. This is back when Republicans had backbones, and we love you, George H.W. Bush. And the other crowd is like, fuck George H.W. Bush. I don't know anything about it. Like, I'm not in either of those groups. I follow a lot of people that are in one of the groups. See if you can guess which one it is. But I don't know too much about George H.W. Bush to get like a good strength. All I know is he's like a very typical conservative, and that's not a good thing in my book, to be quite honest. You know, because I'm not that, like, aside from the no new taxes promise and maybe like the whole line to get us into the Gulf War is because that's the thing he did. He, much like him, like father like son, line to get us into a war. That's not a good thing. But like you said, there's some good aspects about him, I guess. But we're gonna talk about the bad stuff first, because that's some apparent. Because I've said more bad than good so far, so might as well keep going on about the bad. Him being an uncharismatic version of Reagan would be a thing. I mean, like, even like he was pretty much like the super uncharismatic version of Reagan. Like, Reagan was like the cool one. Reagan was the cool guy who was like super in with the little kids who were like, man, I want to be like him. But, you know, he was trying to be that, but he didn't. He was more of a thing that was not like, he's not I wouldn't say he's he wasn't like a super against the idea of Reagan and a lot of his policies. I mean, he was picked to be the VP, but, you know, it shows that he was a bit skeptical about Reagan and his policies, but he still went along happily during the Reagan administration. Was like, So, I mean, but anyways, I guess the good things now, like, for starters, he was, like I said, he was he was somewhat environmentalist. That's a good thing. Like, some of his policies, I'd say, aren't particularly good. Like, I mean, they're not bad, but they're not like, it's not like he was the person who tried to end climate change. But his policies were at least somewhat, you know, decent. Anyways, now that I'm thinking about it, I think it just might be random things like good, bad, because right as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the whole Iran-Contra affair, where he pardoned a lot of the people who were part of the Iran-Contra affair. So, yeah, that's not a good thing. And I know I've mentioned it already, but I feel it's just worth reiterating. He literally lied to get us into a war. That's not a good thing. I just, there's no way that is a good thing. That'll never be a good thing for me. And I think he also got involved in a couple other military conflicts, that like were involved with the Middle East, or somewhat. Like I said, I was trying to, I wanted to do before I continue, I just want to say, like, I tried to do my research, but other things got in the way for me to do a proper analysis on George H.W. Bush's career. Or life, I guess. George H.W. Bush, I will say there are some, like, for example, he oversaw the ending of the Soviet Union. That's kind of good. I mean, there's not much else on that regard. I mean, he even though it's largely attributed to Reagan, Bush was the one who actually saw the thing fall. He was the one who brought the end to the Red Scare. So there's also another thing that was pretty good about Bush, was that he was one of the last U.S. presidents to actually take a stand against Israel. He called out the Israeli sanctions and stuff and was like, "Hey, this is not a good thing. Stop it, Israel. Israel, you're dumb. Stop it." And they were like, "Okay, I guess we'll stop for you, Bush." And he was like, "Thank you." And then Israel never did anything bad again. And the Palestinians, they're super, happy now. Everybody loves the Palestinians now. And, I mean, I will say the thing about George H.W. Bush is that in 1988, it was bland versus bland. Like Michael Dukakis versus George W. Bush. It was bland versus bland. George W. Bush was at least able to be less bland than Michael Dukakis. I will give him that. And I mean, to be fair, that's not a high bar to go on. my final results on George W. Bush: less bland than Michael Dukakis. And George W. Bush seemed to have a sense of humor, I guess. I mean, The Simpsons made fun of them because he was like, "We need the United States to be more like the Waltons and less like the Simpsons." And then Simpsons made a jab at him and his wife by saying, like, "Hey, yeah, we're just like the Waltons. We want to get out of this depression too." And George W. Bush was like, "Oh, well." And they made a full-fledged episode where George W. Bush was the enemy of the Simpsons. And then I guess George W. Bush took it fine. I mean, he didn't seem to be too particularly mad. I mean, I guess it's also like... I guess it's another thing that was inherited by his son, because his son was, like, relentlessly picked on. I mean, George W. Bush was just... Not George W. Bush. George W. Bush was the dummy. I mean... Yeah, he was the dummy. There's another thing I have to give George H.W. Bush credit for. And these are minor things. George W. Bush is the best of the Bushes so far. I mean, who does he have to compete against? Jeb, George H.W., and George W. Really, who's the best out of those three? Come on, be real. I think George W. Bush also called out the NRA. Like, he was an NRA member, and then he left the NRA after the NRA was like, yeah, we're super duper ooper cool with the idea of, mass shootings, because, we don't want to infringe on gun rights. And he was like, "Hey, hold on, stop it, buddy. That's not a good thing. We need to fight for gun rights and stuff." Like, he was also, like, he was a huge, I will be honest again, because when I was doing the rankings of U.S. presidents, he was, I think around where he starts is kind of where the bland ones begin. Like think about it, think about it. Who are the ones above, George H.W. Bush? Rutherford B. Hayes, John Tyler, Martin Van Buren, Gerald Ford, Calvin Coolidge, William Henry Harrison. Really, William Henry Harrison ranks above George H.W. Bush. George H.W. Bush, and under him is like William McKinley, Ulysses S. Grant, Millard Fillmore, Ronald Reagan. He's in the middle. He's like in the middle ground where he's like seen as like a below average. I mean, George W. And I mean, there's another thing that like people like the Peace and Freedom Party and stuff. They've been saying stuff like, yeah, George H.W. Bush, we hate the fact that all the stuff that he did against JFK and how he was part of the assassination attempt. I mean, I don't believe that conspiracy nonsense. George H.W. Bush did not have anything to do with JFK's assassination. JFK's assassination was done by a man who was in a rooftop. I had a debate about this in class for some reason. People were literally like, they were so convinced that JFK was not killed by just some guy in a rooftop. Why not? Why did it have to be George H.W. Bush? I remember when I first heard about that conspiracy theory about like George H.W. Bush, he was the one who killed JFK. I'm like, wait, hold on. I was confused. I was like, wait, hold on. Did George H.W. Bush pull? Like, did he himself pull the gun? Like, did he pull the trigger, or was this like ordered by him? I mean, I don't know. I mean, George W. was also involved in another conspiracy theory where people speculated that he was Deep Throat. You know, Deep Throat, the guy who was, he was the guy who was, like, you know who Deep Throat is, the guy who exposed Richard Nixon. He wasn't Deep Throat, obviously, but, you know, like, I mean, for his political career, there's, like, I mean, he was a representative from Texas. He was chair of the Republican National Committee. That's a thing I didn't know. Oh yeah, I forgot. His wife died literally this year. I thought his wife died like last year. Like, I'm on the Wikipedia page of George H.W. Bush to see certain things. Oh yeah, it was like almost like it was a couple months ago. Like April 17th is when his wife died. He was a part of the Navy. Yeah. He was part of a, like, I remember reading the story and like I think I don't remember where it was. I think it was like I think it was just like scrolling through social media where it was like, you see this man, and it was like circle and then like 5 other people. This man was involved in a plane crash, and then the Japanese kidnapped the rest of the people and ate them, and he was the only person who survived and escaped. This man grew up to be George H.W. Bush. I was like, oh, that's cool, I guess. Like, I mean, I will say George H.W. Bush's life outside of the presidency was way cooler than the one that he had when he was in the office. I mean, it was also, like, oh yeah, he served in, yeah, I could have read that. He was served in World War II. That was a thing. Yeah, World War II was a thing. I definitely know it was a thing. Wow. This episode is getting to be me rambling. But I mean, I'm rambling about George H.W. Bush, so it counts. Stuff about George H.W. Bush and how he was kind of cool, kind of lame, you know. Because, like, I mean, unlike those, like, people who are like, you know, fuck him, or I love him, I don't have an opinion about him. I didn't care about George H.W. Bush. I didn't care about him then. I don't really care about him now. I mean, those are people that are like, you can't make fun of him at this time. I don't care. I'll make fun of him if I want. When George W. Bush died, doesn't mean I'm going to stop making fun of him. I mean, I get the idea, like, his family's in grieving, but yeah, they're in grieving. So what? They can't hear me. They can't see me. I mean, I get the idea of, like, don't, like, shit talk a person, like, especially, like, and George W. Bush is kind of lucky because there's not much to really shit talk. There's a lot of bad things about his presidency, yeah, but I mean, there's like, I mean, a lot of stuff is just like, yeah, it stinks that you did that. You pardoned the Iran-Contra people, probably because you're also involved in it. But, you know, I mean, if there were a lot more if there were a lot more presidents out there that were easy to mock and stuff, it'd be easier to be like, hold on. He was like, I'm scrolling through his Wikipedia now. It's like, just finding interesting tidbits about him. He met Babe Ruth. I mean, he ran for president in the 80s. Many times in the 80s. And, didn't he run against John B. Anderson and Jimmy Carter? Not Jimmy Carter, you know who I'm talking about. I will say that he was at least more civil than most other presidents. Like, I mean, you can actually sum it up by looking at his funeral, and to which many people like Ben Shapiro were, you know, like, oh, the idea of this photo that of the modern day presidents, all the presidents sitting together, just being nice and friendly with each other. It's just amazing. And the idea that the presidents would be nice, despite the fact that the Democrats are so far left and the Republicans are just normal. I mean, come on, let's be real, folks. Like you can during the funeral, there were like things that the media really loved and the things the media really hated. Donald Trump, people were like, Donald Trump is acting presidential. Oh my gosh, he's acting like a president. Wow. And then I will say Jimmy Carter was shafted during that. Like, everybody talked about how, like, ooh, George W. Bush gave Michelle another piece of candy. And then, remember, Michelle Obama said that they're partners in crime. More like partners in war crimes. Am I right? The second, and then, Donald Trump was shaking hands with Obama. Bill Clinton was checking out Melania. And then Hillary Clinton was just staring dead-faced. Away from Donald Trump. Like, you know that face you make when you're ignoring someone? Like, someone's clearly trying to talk to you, but you're trying to ignore them, and you're just sitting there stone cold, just staring blankly at something, hopefully begging that this person will not look at you anymore. But, you know, this is just how it is. Hillary's still mad that she lost, but, you know, she can't accept the fact that people didn't want to vote for her. Even with the endorsements of the Bushes, she couldn't win. I mean, that has to stink. The civil aspect was when Bill Clinton lost his... not Bill Clinton lost. George W. Bush won... I was getting it confused in both ways. George H.W. Bush lost his re-election bid. Then he left, like, a note for George... Why do I keep thinking George? Because... Just because it's George H.W. Bush's episode doesn't mean I have to talk about George H.W. Bush all the time. Bill Clinton was left a note by George H.W. Bush basically saying, like, hey, you know, buddy, this is a hard job. Good luck. Best of luck, dude. Love, Bush. And then Bill Clinton replied with, yeah, I do. And then, you know, we all know what happened after that. Although George W. Bush... he has socks now, like those sock things. Like there's apparently like socks that were released of him. I remember watching that news story and then just waving it off, like Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, they ran against each other in 1996, and George H.W. Bush, not 1996, 1992. Like George H.W. Bush was given a pair of socks by Bill Clinton, and I just wrote that off. But then I remembered like a couple of days because my brother reminded me, like, yeah, he got like a pair of socks because he didn't like socks. I'm like, oh yeah, he did like socks. That's where he spent all that tax money. Man, wouldn't that be a big reveal if he actually did spend that tax money that he raised? Like, he was like, no new taxes, but then he was like, oh no, without this tax money, I can't buy socks. I never understood that. Why did he like socks so much? I'm gonna look this up right now. Okay, I just looked this up, and it's really sad. Like, it's really sad, like, why he likes socks. I thought it was just a weird quirk, but it was just, apparently it's because of the fact that, due to the fact that he always had to sit down, his pants always had to show his ankles, and he was so embarrassed about showing his ankles that he decided to wear these bright, colorful socks to make himself feel better. I didn't expect that, to be quite honest. I thought it was going to be like, oh, when I was a young boy, my dad gave me a nice pair of socks, and then But, you know, I mean, like I said, I didn't expect that to be the reason why he liked socks. But, I mean, to be quite honest, I mean, wouldn't we expect that to be, like, the reason why someone would like socks so much? I mean, unless, never mind, I'm not gonna bring that up in this episode. I've already made too many jokes in this episode. But like I said, George H.W. Bush is a relatively below mediocre president. I mean, I wouldn't say he was an atrocious president. Like I wouldn't say that he was like a George W. Bush. But I mean, I'm not gonna give him a pass on everything just because he's dead now. He made bad mistakes. He made bad decisions that were terrible. He made not good. He made bad decisions. He wasn't a good president. I'm gonna say that up front. He wasn't a good president, but he did mediocre. Like, I would rate him below mediocre in regards to presidencies, below average. Like, I mean, I'll put them in 3 levels. I mean 5 levels. 5 levels of presidencies. We have FDR, representing the best of the best. We have, Bill Clinton or Barack Obama, representing like the not so good but relatively decent-ish presidencies. Then we have like the mediocre ones, like the Gerald Fords and the William Henry Harrisons. The below average, like William McKinley and Millard Fillmore. And then we have like the really bad ones like George W. Bush and James Buchanan. George H.W. Bush would firmly be placed in the below average category. He was bad, but not too bad to be like atrocious. Many people rank him like a little bit higher than that, but I'm in my list. He's probably gonna stay number 30 for a while. Just because there's worse and then there's better. You can't really get that. There will always be presidents better than George H.W. Bush, and there will always be presidents that are worse than him. I mean, like, for example, George W. Bush, I don't think there really will be a president as bad as him. Unless Donald Trump brings us into, like, another Iraq war. Like, Trump is checking all the check marks to be, like, placed, like, either right above or right below James Buchanan. But, unless he goes to war, he'll be above George W. Bush. So, that's pretty much all I can say about George H.W. Bush. Below average, but, condolences to his family if they do happen to watch this. And if they did, sorry I made a bunch of jokes about George H.W. Bush. I will say, I did watch some of the funeral service, and George W. Bush, he was kind of funny. Like, some of the stuff he did say was kind of funny. When he did talk about, like, religion and stuff, I was kind of like, we get it. You're a Christian family. We get it. Now, the bigger question is, would I have attended if I was invited? I mean, in this scenario of my current life, probably not, because of the fact that I have obligations here. But let's say I was like a member of Congress at the time, NC District 4, only independent in Congress, and I was called by the George W. Bush family, hey, George H.W. Bush died, and we want you to attend the funeral. Unless I had an obligation, I'd be like, fine. But just a heads up, not religious and disagree with you guys politically, so most of the time I'm gonna keep my head down and keep silent. You know, just to refrain myself from doing too much bad. Though I would probably like make my way to the front row and then point at Obama, or maybe like try to meet Obama outside and be like, wow, I didn't know we could be in this many. I didn't know we'd be in a room full of war criminals. But anyways, like, I mean, or something along the lines of, man, I didn't know I would be in a room full of war criminals, but then I went to George H.W. Bush's funeral. But thank you, I'll be here all week. So, to reiterate, George H.W. Bush, ranking between 1 to 43, rank him solidly number 30, which makes him worse than Rutherford B. Hayes, but better than William McKinley. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more political content from me, you can go to my website or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Quora. What are your thoughts on George H.W. Bush? Are you in the crowd that hates him a lot? Or are you in the crowd that loves him too much? Or are you just like me and I'm like, kind of, sort of, kind of bad, but not too bad, but no. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below.